They forgot my birthday. Not because they were busy. Not because they were out of their minds. They just didn't care. No calls, no notes, no little cakes left outside the door. Just another day passed in cruel silence. To a stranger it might not seem like much. But when your own blood family, your parents, your siblings, treat the day you were born as if it never happened, it's more than sadness. It's a stab to the heart. And I, who had given them all my loyalty, my money, my gratitude, finally realized the truth. I had never been loved properly. But then, fate smiled strangely, and gave me a gift they never expected. A gift they lost forever because they forgot about me. On the day I was born, welcome to Judgy Tales, where we tell real stories that are emotional, painful, and sometimes downright brutal. Stories that you might think only happen in movies, but are actually coming straight from Reddit, where millions of people share their betrayals, sacrifices, and sweetest moments of redemption. We don't tell stories to make you feel sorry for us. We tell them to listen, to judge, to feel. Will justice be served? Will there be a price to pay for indifference? In today's story, you'll see how a simple forgetfulness, a forgotten birthday, can be the source of a turning point in fate. A response that isn't met with screams or tears, but with a will written in silence, and one that ends in a loss that no one can repair. Be prepared, because this twist will make you rethink what you consider family. You won't want to miss a second of this story. And if you're someone who believes that every action has a consequence, that even the forgotten are sometimes mentioned, then you're in the right place. This is Judgy Tales. Ear listen. Balance scale judge. Beach balloon share your thoughts. Under the dim yellow light of my small suburban Chicago apartment, I sat alone in front of a birthday cake I'd bought in a hurry from the convenience store. 15 candles burned brightly on the vanilla frosting, which had melted from the long drive home. I blew out the candles without making a wish. There was no one to sing happy birthday. No laughter, no presents. It was my 30th birthday, a milestone for many, but for my family a day that was completely invisible. I am Alex, the middle child in an American family of 3. My older brother Jason is 5 years older than me, and has always been pampered and expected to take over the family business. My youngest sister Mia is the princess of the family, forgiven for all her mistakes, from dropping out of school to becoming a mother at 19. And me, am the shadow, the one who does everything by the rules, doesn't cause trouble. The easy-to-raise child who is easily forgotten. Since I was little I learned not to ask for much. Because whenever I asked, the answer was usually, "You know Jason needs it more, right?" Or, "Mia is still young, you are the older brother so you have to give in." I'm used to being put behind. When I grew up I moved out to college on a scholarship. I didn't ask my parents for anything, didn't borrow money, didn't ask for support. I worked part-time, cleaned houses on weekends, and worked as a library assistant to help pay the bills. My parents didn't even come to my graduation. They said they were busy because it was Mia's birthday. It wasn't the first time I'd been put behind my sister. And I learned my lesson. Quiet success goes unnoticed in a family that only cares about loud people. After college I worked at a small finance company, starting to build a career. I was never in the spotlight, but I was always stable. No debt, no love problems, no scandals. Meanwhile, Jason went bankrupt a few times, got sued, and Mia moved back in with her parents after 2 divorces before she was 25. I still helped, sent money, shared when they needed it. I thought, I am your sibling, your daughter, so this is how it should be. But there was a truth I didn't want to face. I only got texted when someone needed money. My mother always said I was mature and independent, but that was just her way of justifying not caring. When I was in a car accident at 27 and spent 2 weeks in the hospital, no one from my family came to see me. Jason was in Vegas on a big business trip, and Mia was busy with the baby. My father sent a single message. "Get well soon, son." And that was it. I spent most of my life trying to prove that I was worthy of recognition. I hoped that if I was good enough, quiet enough, successful enough, they would feel sorry for ignoring me. But no. People only appreciate something when it's gone. And I was never important enough to lose. So when my Uncle Harold called me into his law office to have a serious talk about inheritance, I was completely taken aback. Harold was my mother's older brother, the only person in the family who had ever paid any attention to me. He had always sent me birthday cards, whether they were e-cards or old postcards, since I was a child. He gave me my first classic book, lent me his old car to take to college, and invited me to lunch once a month. No strings attached, no judgment, just a presence. When Harold died of pancreatic cancer, I cried like I had lost a real father. My father just said, "It's okay," he kept to himself. Jason didn't go to the funeral. Mia came because she heard Harold had a house in an expensive suburb. They were all thinking about property, and I just wanted to say thank you one last time. But then, a few weeks after the funeral, I was called in with my family to meet with the lawyer. The room was filled with silence and uncomfortable suspense. Jason was smirking, Mia was on her phone. My parents wore serious masks but couldn't hide their excitement. And then the lawyer spoke. Harold left his entire estate to one person. Not equally, not fairly. But everything, the house, the company shares, the bank accounts, the life insurance. And the name was called Alex. I heard Mia drop the phone. Jason leaned forward, almost standing. My mother gasped. My father just looked at me, saying nothing. I still didn't fully understand what was happening. Why me? And then the lawyer produced a handwritten letter. That letter was the starting point for all the changes. In it, Harold wrote clearly, "You are the only one in this family who understands the value of appreciation and silence. Not because you need it, but because you deserve it." From that moment on, my family started to circle me, but not for love or remorse. For money. They sent belated congratulations, texted to check in, invited me over for dinner to talk about the future. Mia started talking about how her kids missed me. Jason suggested investing together. My dad asked if he could manage some of my assets. My mom sent old photos of me she'd never cared about. And then my 31st birthday came. A year after I sat alone with the cake. A year since I decided not to ask for their love anymore, but to show them what loss felt like. I prepared an unexpected birthday present. Not for me, but for them. A surprise that would forever change the way they looked at me. A response without words. Without anger. But with silence and choice. And that's when the story really begins. I used to think the most painful thing was being forgotten. But then I realized there's something worse. Being intentionally ignored. Not because people are busy, not because they don't care. But because they don't consider your existence important. Like you're not worth remembering. It's not an accident, it's a choice. And it's been killing me little by little for years. After Uncle Harold left me all his money, I didn't tell anyone what I was going to do with it. I took it all in silence, as I always did in this family. I thought maybe they would change at least a little. Maybe they would see me differently. No longer as the indifferent son, the self-sufficient brother who never needed help. But I was wrong. Because money doesn't make people love you more. Just makes them try to manipulate you more subtly. I started getting weird messages. Mia asked me, "Hey, it's my birthday next week, are you doing anything?" Someone who hadn't wished me a happy birthday in 6 years suddenly remembered. Jason sent me a business plan asking me to invest because, "We're brothers, so let's do something big together." My parents also asked me out to dinner. Something that hadn't happened in the 4 years since I'd been home. I wasn't stupid. I knew what was going on. They were testing me. Gauging how soft I was. Seeing if I was as easily led as before. And then the thing that made me explode came. My 31st birthday. I had a small dinner in my newly purchased apartment downtown. No fancy mansion, no big party. Just a few close friends, a few old colleagues, some cake, some wine. I still invited my family, even though I knew they never took this day seriously. I thought, maybe this time will be different. But then that night I waited. 7 p.m. No one shows up. 7:30 p.m. Mia posts a photo of herself at a bar with the caption, "My best friend's birthday." Jason checks in at an MMA event in Vegas. My parents send the same message. Busy another day. Happy late birthday. Smiled. A bitter smile but not surprised. I spent my childhood and adulthood in a family where recognition was a rare commodity, and favors were distributed according to rules I never understood. I believed that if I was better, quieter, I would be loved. But no. They loved loud people. They loved demanding people. They loved people who kept them busy, who made them feel powerful to save. And I, who never asked them for a penny, who was never a burden, was simply not on their minds. That night, I realized I wasn't just forgotten. I was discarded, erased from the family story as if I had never existed. And the most heartbreaking thing of all, they didn't see anything wrong. A few weeks later, I decided to visit my parents, unannounced. I just wanted to see if they noticed. Was there a little disturbance in their lives while I was gone? Was there a little void in their hearts? I knocked. My mother opened the door, surprised but not happy. My father stood behind me, arms folded, his face grim. Jason wasn't there, nor was Mia. I was invited in like a guest. They asked perfunctory questions. How's it going? How's work? Is that house big? All the questions were about money. No one asked if I was okay. No one mentioned my birthday. No one apologized. No one. I tried to ask. Do you remember what last week was? My mother was silent. My father looked at the floor. I continued. It was my birthday. My 31st. My mother shrugged. Oh, really? Sorry, I thought it was next month. No guilt. No embarrassment. Just cruel indifference. I felt no more anger. Just emptiness. A deep hole inside. I sat there for another 10 minutes, listening to them talk about the neighbors, about my mother's friend's kid buying a new car. Then I stood up. Didn't say a word. Just nodded and left. I thought of the years I'd spent sending money to help Mia pay her tuition, the times I'd bailed out Jason when he was sued for debt, the times I'd quietly bought birthday presents for my parents when they'd never remembered my birthday. It all evaporated. It was as if I'd never been a part of that family. But the worst was yet to come. A month later, I received a call from Harold's attorney. They said there were some property documents that needed to be completed, and asked me to come to the office to sign them. When I got there, I was stunned. My family was sitting in the waiting room. My father looked at me as if he had the right to question me. Jason smirked. Mia feigned surprise. They had called the lawyers to review the will, claiming that I had taken advantage of Harold when he was mentally ill. They were trying to get their money back. And they hadn't told me. They were doing it behind my back. Coldly and calculatingly. I sat in the conference room, listening to their attorneys read a list of evidence against me. Photos of me taking care of Harold, text messages between me and my uncle, lunches I paid for. All of it was twisted into emotional manipulation tactics to get an inheritance. And I understand. I understand that to them I am not family. I am a threat. A thorn in their side. Someone who suddenly snatched away their chance to change their life. In their eyes I have no feelings. I am just an obstacle. That's when I decided. If they only see me as an obstacle, then I will make it impossible for them to move forward. If they want to make me an enemy, then I will show them a version of me that they have never seen before. Because there are things that, once completely denied, you have nothing left to lose. And when you have nothing to lose, you become the most dangerous person. For weeks I had kept quiet. I didn't scream, I didn't throw a tantrum, and I didn't confront anyone. But the silence inside me was boiling, bubbling under the surface like a kettle just before the whistle. They had forgotten my birthday. Not just any birthday, my 30th. And it wasn't like I expected gifts or a party. Well, all I wanted was acknowledgement. All. Text. Hey, happy birthday, kiddo. But I got nothing. Not from my mom. Not from my dad. Not even from my younger brother and sister who used to bake me burnt cupcakes when we were kids. It was as if I didn't exist. And maybe, in their world, I didn't. See, my family had a hierarchy. An unspoken but very real ladder of importance. My sister, the golden child, was always at the top. Straight A's, perfect hair, engaged to a future doctor. My brother, the sports guy, the life of the party, always knew how to get attention, and got it. Then there was me. Quiet. Introverted. The weird one who preferred books to people, libraries to parties. They never really understood me, and over time I guess they stopped trying. But forgetting my birthday wasn't just neglect. It was the final nail in a coffin they'd been building for years. I spent the evening alone in my small apartment, eating cold leftover pizza, scrolling through social media, watching photos of my family at brunch. Yes, brunch. Together. Without me. On my birthday. That was the moment everything inside me shattered. But here's the thing they didn't know. I wasn't just sad. I was prepared. See, a year before I had unexpectedly come into money. A former professor I helped with his memoir had passed and left me a portion of his estate. Not millions, but enough to change my life. But I didn't flaunt it. I didn't tell my family. Why would I? They never asked how I was doing, never cared enough to check in. So I saved, I invested, and I waited. Then something even more unexpected happened. My grandfather, my dad's father, the only one in the family who actually liked me, passed away. And in his will, he did something no one expected. He left everything to me. Everything. The house. The land. The classic Mustang he restored himself. His savings. His investments. Everything he had. But he also left a letter. One that he made me promise not to open until after the will was read. When my family found out, they didn't congratulate me. They didn't say, "Wow, he must have really loved you." Well, they accused me. Said I manipulated a dying man. Said I must have turned him against the family. My dad called me a snake in the grass. My mom cried, not out of grief, but because she thought she deserved the estate. And my sister. She said, "This isn't fair. He should have divided it." They didn't ask how I was feeling. They didn't ask if I was okay. They just saw dollar signs. So when they demanded a family meeting to talk things through, I agreed. I told them to come to the house I now owned. I even had sandwiches and drinks ready, like it was a normal gathering. But this wasn't normal. This was the calm before a hurricane. They sat in the living room, looking around like vultures circling a fresh kill. My dad commented on the new hardwood floors. My mom said, "I always loved this couch." My sister asked if I planned to sell the Mustang or donate it to someone who would appreciate it. Smiled. Then I pulled out the letter. It was handwritten, sealed in an envelope with my name in my grandfather's cursive. I opened it slowly. The paper smelled like his study. Dusty books, pipe smoke, old wood. And then I read it. Loud. "My dear grandchild, if you are reading this, it means the vultures have already begun circling. Let them circle. But remember, this estate is yours because you were the only one who listened to me when I was alive. The only one who visited without asking for something. The only one who didn't make me feel like an ATM. You once told me that being the black sheep felt like being invisible. But black sheep stand out. And in a world of wolves pretending to be family, that's a gift. Protect this home. Protect yourself. And don't let them take one more ounce of your peace. Love always, Grandpa." Silence. The kind that punches the air out of the room. My dad stood up first. That's manipulation. He wasn't well. You know that, right? My mom shook her head. "No, this isn't fair. You can't seriously keep all this. We're family." My sister laughed. "You think this letter means anything? You're just bitter because we forgot your birthday." That was it. That was the moment the twist they never saw coming arrived. I pulled out a file from my desk drawer. It was thick, bound, and stamped. "I wasn't going to say anything," I said calmly. "But Grandpa also gave me the rights to something else. His journals. All of them." My dad froze. See, what they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that my grandfather had written about the family. Everything. About my dad's business failures. About the time he borrowed money from Grandpa and never paid it back. About the time he cheated on my mom and blamed her for it. About how my sister forged Grandpa's signature once to get a car loan. About how they mocked him when he got sick, called him old and paranoid. I opened a page and read aloud. May 12th. Dad came by today, asked for another $10,000. Said it was for the business. Asked for paperwork. He yelled at me. Said I was being stingy with his future. I think he only comes by when he wants something. It's lonely. My dad's face turned red. Then I read another. Sister took my checkbook again. I told her to stop, that it was stealing. She laughed. Said, "You won't remember this anyway." But I did remember. I always remembered. My sister gasped. Grandpa wrote everything, I said. And he left it all to me. The house, car, the money, and the truth. They started to argue, throwing out threats about lawyers and lawsuits. So I dropped the final bomb. I already published the first part online, under his name, as his memoir. It's gaining traction. People are reading it. They're going to know who you really are. Unless, of course, you'd prefer to make peace. Quietly, privately, and leave me the hell alone. You could hear a pin drop. My brother, the only one who had stayed quiet until now, stood up and left. Didn't say a word. My sister stormed out. My mom cried. My dad looked at me with a hatred I didn't even know existed. But none of it mattered. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't invisible. I was undeniable. I stood in front of the mirror, reassessing myself after the first twist. The day they realized I could no longer be ignored. They had misunderstood when they thought that my possessions were the only thing that made me stand out. They had never known that my greatest strength was not my possessions, but my silence. And now was the moment when silence became a direct blow to their honor, their self-esteem, and their future. I started by learning how to tell my story. Not by telling my family, but by doing things that made it known. I had my lawyer open a local memorial account for my grandfather, the Arthur Hartley Memorial Fund, but I didn't make the address public. I just posted that there would be a website launch, asking attendees to donate to help people like me, people who felt left out. I didn't invite anyone, didn't tell my extended family. I just posted on social media, cleverly using hashtags, tagging a few organizations and a few anonymous people. Within 48 hours, the fundraiser had raised tens of thousands of dollars from strangers. People who had experienced the loneliness I described in my letter. Meanwhile, my family, who had silently neglected me, now hovered over me. They appeared in urgent emails under the guise of visiting. They invited me to talk about family, while in reality they divided up, through financial experts, or made plans to restructure the legacy in the hope of regaining control of my inheritance. I did not react at first. I let them think they were successful. I let them sit back and watch, thinking I had lost my way. Then, on my 31st birthday, the room was minimalist, the guests were close friends, no family. I canceled the small party and turned it into a public announcement. I rented a hall in the city center. Not big, but big enough to signal. This is me, no longer the forgotten child. The first call I got after the announcement was from my mother. Can you explain to everyone? My father connected. Who are the people who contributed money? Their real names. My sister texted right away. What are you going to do with the money? I laughed. They had learned to attack me from afar. They knew they couldn't win when faced with the truth, so they learned to play indirect. But everyone around me was understanding why I did what I did, because I couldn't be silenced any longer. At the ceremony, I stepped up to the podium, the soft light illuminating my face. No longer afraid, no longer timid. I told my story briefly. About the times I woke up, hoping they would remember me that day, and then being disappointed. About the unanswered texts, the unwelcome emails. About the Christmas present left on the floor as a joke. And the moment they realized I wasn't invisible anymore. When my grandfather saw it clearly and decided to use the law to protect me. Everyone was silent. I continued. I don't want hate, I don't want controversy. I just want one simple thing. To let people who feel left behind know they're not alone. I said softly. This fund will help fund scholarships for people who feel left behind. One a year, $5,000 each. I'm not saying it's enough, but it's a sign. Just like my grandfather did. Local TV cameras came to cover the news. They asked me everything. Why I didn't keep my assets, why I did charity, why I didn't get rich and live alone. I answered the whole tape, but the air was still cool. At first, my family was going to come, but in the end, only my sister came. She was late, bowed her head and held my hand. Brother. Sorry. If I had known. I smiled and stopped holding my hand. No need to make a big deal out of it. But here it was, the first sweet blow, belated regret. Then the story continued a few months later. The retaliation wasn't about revenge, but about really forcing my family to look at things. They hired lawyers to say I was using the will to exert pressure, that I was forcing the transfer of assets in a way that was offensive to the family. I didn't argue. I just turned the foundation into a non-profit. All public records, full audit. I shared the report with my entire family a week before my sister's 32nd birthday. No greetings, but with an email. Here's what I got for my birthday this year. And a picture of the only happy birthday text I'd ever received in 5 years, the day the foundation was launched. The next shock came not in public, but in the middle of an internal mediation session. They came to my law office. I sat there, watching them struggle, not knowing how to react when all the papers were made public. The fund was operating legally. They offered to join me in managing it. I refused. I said, if someone really wants to join, start their own fund. As for me, I am strong enough. My sister choked up and said, I just want to do something good. But I looked her straight in the eye. I have been good for a long time. I don't have to wait for you to show off your achievements or do anything public. And the final blow. I refused all requests for contact or bank account information. I blocked all links. I said, access to the fund. Go to the website. Email if you want to help ideation. Other than that, let your mother and child live, and I will too. And I stood up and never looked back. With every move I made, I proved one thing. I didn't need them, but they always wanted me. What I let go of, they saw as loss. And the ultimate satisfaction was when they had to relearn the feeling of abandonment. By money, by silence, by absence. Today, a year after the big twist, the foundation is still operating. Scholarships are being awarded. Newspapers have written about me as the businessman who doesn't keep his money for himself. My family, some of whom are listed as public administrators of the assets, have no personal contact. Every email I return is, I'm busy with social work. When my sister gave birth, I sent her a card complete with my best wishes. No longer someone's sister, but a woman I loved dearly, but who chose to live differently. Ultimately, I learned that revenge isn't about hurting people. It's about making them realize that the change in you is beyond their control. I didn't destroy them. I just broke the stereotype they had of me. Silent, invisible, nothing. I broke the old me and the way they saw me. And in that erasure I discovered, the pinnacle of revenge is not revenge. It is conquering yourself. When they are still looking at you but you are no longer there for them to control, that is the highest freedom. After all that had happened, when the first Arthur Hartley Memorial Fund scholarship ceremony ended, I stepped off the stage, looked at the smiling faces of those who had once felt abandoned and now had a chance, and I felt something other than happiness. It was a sense of fulfillment. Fulfillment because I had done what I had wanted all my life. I had turned silence into strength, vulnerability into action, and loneliness into connection with those who truly needed support. I thought carefully before stepping up to the podium, knowing that all eyes were on me. Not my family, but the people out there. People who didn't know my name. People who weren't related by blood. They had come for the story I told. They had come to see the twist in the ordinary. That one person could rise from oblivion and make the whole family rethink the value of a person. On the way to the auditorium, I looked straight at the large sign that read, "Because nobody deserves to feel invisible." When I wrote this slogan, I wasn't thinking about fame or recognition. I wrote it for myself, for my grandfather, and for the hundreds of people I met through emails and notes full of stories. Thank you for making me feel alive again. It was nice to know that it came from an honest place. I didn't need any more evidence. I didn't need applause from my family. I had more private, meaningful moments with people who really understood me. I returned to my apartment, quietly setting down the bottle of wine I had bought to celebrate. I didn't taste it. I poured a glass, sat down on the sofa, and watched the city lights through the glass door. In the first light rain of the season, I felt like the rain was washing away all the darkness in my heart. I thought about my parents, my sister, my brother. I didn't feel angry anymore. I knew I had broken a chain of repeated pain. From birth, being overlooked to being ignored over and over again. I had perfected myself without needing any recognition from them. I felt more pity than anger. And forgiveness for myself came as easily as breathing. That night, I opened my grandfather's old emails and found little notes he'd written when I was young. You read about algorithms today, and when it comes to logic, he's different from other kids. You play the piano and no one listens, but I listen, and it's beautiful. Smiled. Being different is not a weakness. Silence is not invisibility. I grew up knowing that. What my family didn't know, or didn't want to know, was that I had never lost myself. I had just been put in the dark. Tomorrow I'll be speaking to students at the university where I studied. They invited me to tell their story. Not the story of how to become rich, but the story of how to become authentic. From the lecture hall, I'll talk about finding value through self-respect, through doing things instead of just hoping others will see you. I'm sure there will be some surprised looks at the images of my mother wearing a mask to the law office, of my sister hugging me, not knowing what to say. But I hope they'll realize, there's no shame in suffering. The shame is in continuing to live so that others choose you based on convenience, not on humanity. The scholarship fund isn't a declaration of war. It's a declaration. Whoever has been silent long enough, speak up for what you believe. My story doesn't end with my first scholarship or my first talk. It continues later when I receive emails from a young girl whose parents have cut me off, from a boy who was the smart kid but the stranger in class, and even from a middle-aged man, a former prisoner for a youthful mistake, now looking to start over. They say that it was only because I had the courage to share my truth that they stood up. They say that my existence makes them believe that they, too, deserve to exist. I can't shake the whole world. But I can make a few small worlds that have fallen silent, shine. I thought of my sister, now a mother of a newborn. She wasn't at the meeting, but I know she reads all the emails, all the messages. She understands that my story, even though it's called My Family Forgot My Birthday, is actually the story of many people. And she is a witness to that. The lesson here is not revenge. It is freedom. When they forget me once, they take away a part of their love. When I fight back with truth and action, I put them and myself in a new space. I no longer let them affect my values. I don't wait for them to apologize. I don't ask them to change. I just show them that I can live without them. At the last minute, I turned on the evening news. The local station reported on the scholarship fund, on the quiet but meaningful launch. A comment read, "Look at the one who was just abandoned and see someone who can rise higher, because true worth is not in blood. It's in action and heart." Smiled. The rain had stopped. I stood up and walked to the window. A small drop of water began to roll down the glass, leaving a wet trail. But it was in no hurry to disappear. And I was in no hurry. I was breathing, living, standing here clearly. And if you're watching this video, and you've ever felt invisible in a family, a community, a situation, I want to say one thing. You are not invisible. Your value is not measured by the eyes of others. And if one day you feel forgotten, stand up, even with a small action, a sincere statement, a silent public statement, and you will see. The world out there can be around you, and you will feel like you can live as you are meant to. My story ends here, but the message does not. Silence can be painful. The silence of being forgotten can kill trust. But choosing silence, not choosing to suffer in silence, is the beginning of freedom, of a life that does not need others' permission to exist. Live in a way that you dare to admit. You have been hurt. You have loved. And you deserve to be loved for what you are. Not just by blood, but by your resilient existence. If you find this story thought-provoking about betrayal, justice, or simply feeling forgotten, you're in the right place. At Judgy Tales, we don't just tell stories. We take you inside real, dramatic, and sometimes heartbreaking moments. And if you feel like today's story is a lesson to anyone who's looking down on others, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Every week, we bring you unexpected twists, clap-worthy revenge, and long-buried secrets. Join our community, where you can be heard, judged, and sometimes see yourself in other people's stories. Thanks for watching Judgy Tales. See you in the next video.